I've made a few circular chess puzzles in the past, but they've all been relatively easy. I'm not that good of a chess player. In fact, I only recently hit 1100, which by the way is being streamed live weekdays at around 1 p.m. Eastern. But anyway, I'm obviously not the best candidate to be making puzzles. So lucky for me, the literal best candidate reached out and made a puzzle of his own. This is MattyZero. He's the current circular chess champion, so if there's anyone I can trust to make a hard circular chess puzzle, it would be him. And this is what he came up with. Feel free to pause the video and try to figure out the solution on your own, but in a few seconds, I'm going to start talking through the solution. Okay, so looking at this position, the first thing you'll notice is that this is mate in 1 for white if black doesn't find a check or do anything to prevent it. This move queen to q1 will be checkmate for white. So first let's look at some moves that prevent the checkmate that aren't actually check. First option is this knight move, knight to o2. This technically prevents the checkmate, but it doesn't make progress and just ends up losing you material because the queen can just take it and the other knight can't capture back because it's pinned to the king. You also have a couple of queen moves that defend this q1 square. But again, this doesn't really make any progress, and for most of them, you'll be giving up the defense of this knight, and it's actually attacked twice and only defended once by your queen, so even if you went to, say, this square, which still defends the knight can just capture, because after you take back, the queen's just going to take it. So because of that, the same thing goes for these king moves that'll, potentially allow your king to escape, but you're not making any progress, and you're probably still getting mated soon anyway. So because of this, let's look at some of the checks that we can make. We actually only have 3 checks in this position. We have bishop takes g2 check, rook to a1 check, and queen to h6 check. First, let's look at the wildest one, bishop takes g2 check. It looks promising at first glance because the king only has 3 options, and if they capture back, you can follow it up with rook takes c2 check. But because of how these knights are placed, you'll run out of checks really quickly. So let's just say king to g3. You can't check here with your queen because it's defended by this knight. And if you went all the way over here, it's defended by this knight. So in this case, you'd have to sacrifice your rook, and there's really nothing you can do after that. And again, once you can't make a check, you're just getting mated in 1 move. So there's just no way to find a checkmate before white beats you to it. So let's look at the next check, rook to a1. And a lot of people thought this was the correct answer on the various posts announcing the puzzle. After this move, the king is forced to h2. And again, every move must be a check unless it also happens to prevent mate in 1. So we only have 2 options here. The rook move is just a blunder. So our only real option is queen to h6 check. After this, the king is forced to g3. Then we only have 3 checks left. Either of these allow the knight to block right here, which ends your attack, and this check forces the king to f2, but now your only check is queen to e3, which allows the king to just jump back over to g3. So this line does actually allow for draw by 3-fold repetition, but we can do better. So let's look at the final check, which I'm sure you might have guessed by now is the correct move. Let's go with queen to h6 check. After this, the king is forced to g1. Then our options are either of these queen checks or rook to a1. Again, the queen checks just allow the king to run away, and we need to be able to keep making checks. So let's go with rook to a1. This forces the king to f2. Then we see a very similar position where we have the option to play perpetual check. In fact, it looks like this is the only option, but this time we have the brilliant move, rook to f1, sacrificing the rook, which my Discord members told me to say in a weird voice, but I'll resist. If the king takes the rook, we have queen to h1 check. And from here, the king can run away to either f2 or e2. And in either case, we can play queen to g2 check, which is defended by this bishop all the way on m8. Now the king is forced to d1 or e1 if they went to e2. And for either of these moves, we can play queen to f1 checkmate. So here's a look at the final position for that line. Now let's go back to this position right after the rook sacrifice. The king also has 2 other moves. The first is king g3, but this immediately runs into queen to f4 checkmate. There's also king to e2, which gives us several checks, like seriously quite a lot of checks. But the best one is queen to e3 check. This forces the king to take the rook, where we can play the final move, knight to d2 checkmate. So once again, huge thanks to MattyZero for making that puzzle. As you might have expected, the circular chess champion is a bit better at making these than the developer, so seriously thanks. He also already made a second puzzle, which I'm going to be announcing today. It's actually a double puzzle. So this is white to move and black to move. There are 2 solutions. So if white to move, white has forced mate, and if it's black to move, black has forced mate. Feel free to discuss potential answers in the comments below. And again, huge shout out to my channel member, Cohen. If you want to join this list, you can become a channel member for just $3 a month. You'll be doing a lot to support the channel. So if you'd like to and are able to, I'd greatly appreciate it. Also be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment letting me know what you want to see next. All those really help me out in YouTube's algorithm. So with that being said, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.